The Connecticut Student Film Festival was first created probably about 2 years ago. It was part of a proposal that was put to the state to produce a new program called the Digital Media Movie Making Program. And if you're going to have students producing films, then obviously you want to create an environment where they can showcase these films. So at the very beginning of the Digital Media Movie Making Program, there was already the thought about creating a Connecticut Student Film Festival, and that was piloted last year in 2009. You know, it's grown significantly in just 12 months. If you look at it from last year, in 2009, I think we had 10 Connecticut high schools involved in the film festival. We had 2 categories. I think there was a PSA and a documentary category. And then we had a few entries from CCC Film Challenge, which made up the fictional short films. So we had 2/ maybe 3 categories. This year we had over 20 Connecticut high school districts, as well as some non-profit organizations, and we had, I think, 6 categories, and probably tripled the content and easily doubled, if not tripled, the amount of people that participated in the film festival for 2010. The production side of the Connecticut Student Film Festival for 2010 and compared to 2009 was a lot more challenging. Obviously, with the fact that we tripled the content, there was a lot more schools involved, and we added this open category, which means that there were schools that were submitting work that would potentially be shown at the film festival, which wasn't associated with the digital media movie making program. So I had formats, all these different film formats coming in that varied in quality, and then putting them all onto the computer. And I wanted to keep them on the computer because I was going back and forth from the office and my home doing the editing. So my computer, I think 2 days before the film festival, I began smelling burning smells. I mean, the things I was asking my computer to do in those last couple of days. So production side of things, it was very challenging just to actually get the film shown. And then the organization aspect was even more complicated because it was just a bigger event. So there was a lot of things that were new, and with that, there was a lot of production challenges in comparison to 2009. 2009 was pretty simple in compared to 2010.
Now, the difference between the 2 years of the program are pretty marked, I think. As far as the film festival goes, the first year we really didn't have one. It was a student expo. We had a booth set up. Second year around, it was a true film festival where there were showings of the students' work, and we were all seated and watching all the same thing at the same time. So I believe the second year was much better. Gave the true flavor of a student film festival, and everybody got to watch the projects all in one seating.
I think there was better press this year, definitely, for sure, for the general public anyway. I think the film festival itself kind of knew a little bit better what the DM3 program was all about and what they could expect. I think the more important thing is the experience for the student filmmakers, which was like night and day. I mean, when we were at the Student Expo, it was exciting and it was important, and we had a deadline, and we had our competing schools that were there that we'd sort of befriended over the year, and it was great to kind of be in the same room. But it was also kind of like, is it a film festival, or is it just sort of this weird afterthought that's part of this big giant convention thing? So I think to have it in a legitimate theater as part of the Connecticut State Film Festival, everyone got all gussied up, and to have the logos on display and people taking pictures of the kids when they came. I mean, the whole thing was just night and day. It was really magical to have the previous award winners come back and give out their category to the new crop of winners. The whole thing was just fantastic.
There was, for the Connecticut Student Film Festival 2010, there were some problems. Anytime you do anything for the first time, there are going to be problems. I think it's important that you improve on those problems, so the same problems don't come up the year after, so hopefully they won't. I think, to me, one of the most significant problems was the fact that we wanted to welcome schools outside of the digital media movie making program, but how you do this was always going to be a challenge. And it did cause problems. You know, I wanted to make them involved as much as possible, but there was no way you could judge films that were so different and diverse. And that was probably a really significant challenge for me. In terms of successes, I think the biggest success for me for the 2010 Connecticut Student Film Festival was watching the faces of the students come in at the beginning. You know, seeing everyone dressed up, seeing people in sunglasses, everyone was just dressed up. They really were there to celebrate their work. It was their day. And, you know, the energy they brought into that film festival was the biggest success by far. In terms of handling the press side of things for the Connecticut Student Film Festival, you know, you have all these great ideas and you want to contact all these different news outlets and send out press releases. And we did send out a few press releases, but we probably wasn't as proactive as we would have liked to have been. And that was just purely because we were stretched. You know, we've kind of had a smaller staff this year, yet we seem to have done more. So that definitely proved a challenge, and unfortunately we didn't really get out to that many papers. I think the press that we got came from probably the participants. I think the Danbury News Times came and covered the Connecticut Student Film Festival. We did send a press release to them. But you know, I think that there's been a little bit of pickup since the film festival. We've had a few phone calls from other local newspapers wanting to know a little bit about it. But that's something that I'd like to improve on for next year, is the press side of things for the Connecticut Student Film Festival. You know, the aftermath was great. You know, going back, the aftermath of the Connecticut Student Film Festival this year was fantastic. Going back to that idea of one of the successes was the energy that the students brought into the movie theatre. That energy seemed to continue, and it kind of like, and the teachers as well. You know, we had the expo the next day, and we saw some of the students and teachers that were at the Connecticut Student Film Festival, and they were still on a high. They were buzzing, and you know, we've had some great emails from teachers and students. You know, the aftermath has been great in that, knowing that so many students enjoyed themselves, and that's why we're doing it. You know, it's for the students, and I think we were very successful with that. And in terms of the aftermath, that success has carried on through. Students have definitely continued to communicate the fact they've had a great time. So that's very positive.
Well, the fact that the students were able to receive awards the first 2 years that we participated, the first 2 years of the program, has been really exciting. I've seen kids who came in with low expectations and low self-esteem and low energy, and as we started to get closer and felt like we had pieces that were competitive, to see them kind of become animated and anticipate the ceremony and think, wait a minute, there's actually kind of something in my life that came from school that I can actually feel really good about. That to me is really what the award ceremony and having these kids earn these accolades, that's what it's really all about. Well, I don't know if anybody cares about my experience. I mean, it was really for my students. You know, we had some parents who came down, so it was kind of for them as well. But I'll tell you about the general East Haven experience, I guess. We had a lot of kids who actually did the class this year, and some of them were involved very heavily in the films, and some of them only sort of, you know, maybe on the days that we were shooting, or they kind of helped a little bit here or there. But every single kid who took the class and could be there on the night of the film festival supported every other kid from East Haven and the other schools, regardless of how deep their involvement had been on the long days of editing or the voiceover sessions or the animation that we worked on that took weeks and weeks. It was very positive and unified and complementary. You know, in other words, all the kids felt like they were part of something special, regardless of their involvement.
Much happier with Roland's participation this year. The students completed projects on time for the most part, and our submissions were way up as far as the number of projects we actually submitted. The quality of the work was much better as well. All the comments I got from Med Connections were very positive, much improved. And on Berlin's winning the Audience Choice Award, again, I think it was a direct reflection on the students that we had in the program. For the most part, they were a lot more interested in learning about digital media and video. They brought a lot of skills in, and their interest as well.
You know, it's difficult to compare last year's film festival to this year's film festival, partly because last year was a pilot. This year was a pilot as well, but you know, it was, for a start, the film festival was piloted last year, and it was part of the Expo. And the Expo, in case you don't know, is this huge event that we run that has up to about 1,500 participants in, and it's at the Connecticut Convention Center. And there's just so many things going on. This year we pulled the film festival out of the Expo. It's still connected, it was still part, we still see it as part of the same event, but it took place in a different location on a different day, which meant that it had the complete focus. So in comparison, it was almost like it was its first year this year. Even though it wasn't, it felt like it was its first year, because in essence it stood on its own. So I don't think you can really compare the two, but there's a huge difference between the two. So in terms for next year, some of the plans that we have for the Connecticut Student Film Festival next year is, first of all, you want to continue to build and improve on the successes from last year, tackle some of the challenges, make sure the same challenges don't come back up again. So I think we've got plans to do that. The other thing we want to do is continue to involve more schools. So we're currently looking at or investigating ways to involve schools outside the program, but try and involve these schools in the assessment process, judging process. So these schools can continue to compete for some of the awards in some of the categories. So we're looking at ways that can take place, because we understand, you know, we get the fact that schools want to be involved in the film festival and compete for awards. So we're looking to increase that this year. We're considering looking towards some other categories, but we have to be realistic to what categories we can support. We're also, you know, playing around with the objective of the film festival. You know, is it to showcase all of the student work from Connecticut, or is it to showcase the best student work from Connecticut? So we're investigating the objective of the film festival. And finally, hopefully a significant change will be the fact that we want to introduce a middle school component. So there probably will be a longer period for the film festival. There'll be perhaps a middle school component followed by a reception, and then a high school component. And people would have the option to attend both, or perhaps just a half each. So that's going to increase the number of school participants as well, and also open it up to middle schools. That's very exciting as well. And you know, maybe we'll also potentially involve some universities, but everything's still being investigated at the moment.